Working hard, I see. Sweet tea?
Hey, boss. Sorry. I was just vibing, man. The rhythm of the music helps me work at a good pace.
That's not music. That's just a bunch of noise.
It's rap music, man. The poetry of the streets.
Call me old-fashioned, but I think poetry is a thing of beauty. It turns feelings into thoughts, and thoughts into words. It does things that rap music just can't do.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, poetry has the power to create images in your mind. An image can suggest something you see, hear, smell, taste, or feel. Take a look at this haiku. It's a very old form of poetry that has just 3 short lines. An old, silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again.
Funky, dude. That's a pretty short poem.
Yeah, this haiku captures a moment in time. Close your eyes and listen. What do you hear first? An old, silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again.
Silence.
Good. Now what do you hear next? Click on the word you hear. And then silence again.
I'm feeling the peacefulness of the setting. Picturing the little frog dude interrupting the silence with a splash. Click on the frog to see the picture in my head. Then it's all quiet again.
I think you've got it, chap. A good poem is filled with imagery, words and phrases that appeal to my senses. And sometimes poems have a rhythm or beat.
Sweet. Just like rap music.
There's a musical quality that is produced by repeated sound patterns. Click the button to listen to this poem by Alfred Noyes. It's about a highwayman.
A highwayman?
Just an old-fashioned word for a bandit or a thief.
I can almost hear the horse's hooves when the speaker repeats, riding, riding.
Beginning sounds are repeated too. The moon was a ghostly galleon. Click on another phrase that has repeating consonant sounds.
This poet uses rhyme too. Trees and seas, more and door.
Yes, many poems have a rhyme scheme or a regular pattern of rhyming sounds at the ends of lines.
Let's label the rhyme scheme with letters. Find the words that rhyme and mark them with the same letter. Write a new letter for the words that don't rhyme. Check it out. Since the first 2 lines rhyme, I'll mark them each with an A. Now you do the rest. Drag the letter A, B, or C to the end of each line to label the rhyme scheme, starting with the 3rd line. Remember to put a new letter for a word that doesn't rhyme. And don't skip letters.
But the poems I most enjoy are the ones that reveal some truth about life. Poems that have a theme or message or moral really speak to me, like this one by Emily Dickinson. Click to hear it read aloud.
Whoa, I guess some people believe that a word dies or loses its power when it's spoken.
Yes, but the poet has a different belief. She thinks a word becomes more powerful when it is spoken. It just begins to live that day.
Emily Dickinson almost turns a word into a person, saying that it lives and dies.
That image makes the message all the more powerful, right? The theme of this poem is that words never lose their meaning once they are spoken. This is one of my favorite poems of all time, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. It has everything a good poem will have. Imagery, rhythm, rhyme, a message or theme, but it is a bit longer than the other poems we've read. It's divided into stanzas, or a number of lines that form a unit in a poem. Each stanza has its own point. Together they convey the theme of the poem.
Kind of like paragraphs in a story.
Yes, but don't be fooled. Each line is not its own separate sentence, so watch for the punctuation as you read.
Let's read it, and then we'll break it down. There's a lot to this poem.
Yeah, ask me to retell a story I've read and I can tell you, but with poetry, I get a little lost.
Yeah, lost in the woods? You'll get it later. You can understand any poem if you break it down. Let's start by looking at the structure or organization of the poem. The structure of this poem includes 4 stanzas of 5 lines each.
And check out the punctuation. This whole stanza is one complete sentence. Good thing there are commas to show us where to pause when we read.
Cool, sweetie, I'm impressed. Here's something I can add. Each stanza of this poem has a rhyme scheme. I know this is not the case for all poems, but it definitely helps create a nice rhythm to this one. Can you help me label the rhyme scheme for the first stanza? Drag the letter A or B to the end of each line to label the rhyme scheme. Click the check mark when you're done.
There's also a very strong image throughout the poem. It's repeated many times. Click on the picture that best represents the imagery in this poem. Great, now we're ready to give it a go. In a longer poem like this, you have to look at each stanza carefully. Remember, each stanza will have its own point.
Yeah, in the first stanza, the speaker, that's the person talking in the poem, comes to a place where one road turns into 2.
And just like the opening paragraph in a story, the first stanza of a poem often sets up the problem or conflict. In stanza 1, what problem does the speaker have?
The speaker has to make a choice. Which road will he take?
Brilliant!
So, what about the rest of the stanzas? Let's take a look at each of them.
How does stanza 2 further develop ideas introduced in stanza 1?
Which line in stanza 2 tells you that the speaker chooses the road less traveled by?
Reread lines 14 and 15 of stanza 3. Which statement best explains the meaning of these 2 lines?
This last stanza is really different because the speaker is imagining how he will feel in the future,
telling the story to his children and his grandchildren.
Think about the last 3 lines of the poem. What kind of person would make this choice to take the road less traveled by?
Breaking this poem down stanza by stanza was a huge help.
Let's go back to that image that repeats itself.
2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Yeah, it's the first line of the poem, and then again at the end.
That has to be important, right? I mean, the fork in the road where they split in 2, that's not just a fork in the road, is it? I think it stands for something else.
Good for you. When an image is repeated, chances are it has some meaning behind the precise meaning of the words. So, what do the 2 roads in the poem represent?
Okay, but there's one thing I don't understand. It sounds as though the speaker is happy with the choice he made. He says, and that made all the difference. So why does he tell this story with a sigh?
It's a mystery, dude. But if you think about it, the speaker doesn't say whether making all the difference made his life better or worse.
Do you think that the speaker was happy with the choice he made or regretful about it?
I think the speaker was satisfied with his choice. He sounds proud when he says, and that made all the difference.
I think he regretted the road he didn't take. That's why he sighed. And another thing, check out the title of the poem.
Food for thought. Who do you agree with? Do you think the speaker was happy with the choice he made? Now here's the beauty of poetry. It's open to as many different interpretations as there are readers. So you're both right.
Let's break it down. The road not taken had imagery, rhythm, and a lot of meaning. Each stanza had its own point.
And we know that the poem is about making tough choices.
All of that can lead us to the theme or message of the poem. Can you dig it?
Boss, I thought we agreed you were going to cut that out. But you're right. The theme here is that the choices we make determine our path in life.
Hey, that's what I was going to say.
Ah, but you choose to let me say it.